If you've ever felt your presence evaporate the moment you needed it most, eyes restless, voice thin, purpose fragmented, stay here. Welcome to Gods of Semen. I'm Laert, your guide in a path where spiritual discipline meets psychological clarity and real physiology. And today we unveil the neuroelectrical reason your aura grows stronger on semen retention. We will translate aura into measurable signals, attention rhythms, breath-led tone, heart rate variability, so the fog of apathy, burnout, anxiety, compulsive novelty, and the erosion of masculine essence gives lugar to coherence you can feel and others can read, and you will see how regulating the brain-heart axis, cleaning dopamine noise, and stacking breath, voice, and posture turns retention from a fragile streak into a stable field. This is an initiation, a call to remain until the end, where I will hand you the 3-second field test that proves your presence, the 7-minute neuroelectrical stack to prime any social moment, and the 14-day map that consolidates focus, magnetism, and direction. Because this is not entertainment but a rite of transmutation for men ready to rebuild the conscious self from the inside out. If this speaks to the part of you that refuses to live anesthetized, subscribe now and activate the bell. Because each episode is a step in a living curriculum, and we are moving toward 25,000 initiates who aren't just consuming content, but building a global brotherhood of disciplined, spiritually awake men. Take your place and stay with me to the final key. When we talk about aura here, we're not entering a distant mystery. We're naming something you already feel when you walk into a room and instantly sense who is centered and who is scattered. Aura, in this context, is the sum of signals your nervous system emits and the environment reads effortlessly. It's the living set of posture that doesn't ask for permission, eye contact that stays steady without hardening, voice that occupies space with rhythm and presence, micro-expressions that don't betray anxiety, and response timing that doesn't rush to fill silence. This operational definition pulls the theme out of the nebulous and sets it in daily life. What others call charisma, magnetism, or presence is nothing more than a stable pattern of neuroelectrical and autonomic signals organized in favor of your intention. In practice, these signals arise from an ongoing conversation between brain and body. Your attentional rhythms, which can be observed in brain frequencies, define whether you're scattered or available to what matters. At the same time, the autonomic nervous system adjusts heartbeats, breathing, and skin conductance, shaping the tone you carry. When this axis is regulated, the body finds a tempo. Shoulders rest without slumping. The jaw relaxes without losing firmness. Breathing drops into the abdomen and begins to guide speech. The result is a bodily tone that communicates safety before the first word. People around you won't know why, but they'll notice. They read your field through subtlety, how you stand in a coffee line without looking rushed, how you listen to a coworker without breaking eye contact, the 1-second pause before you respond that avoids the timbre of reactivity. All of this is the neuroelectrical translated into gesture, pause, and rhythm. This translation matters directly for men between 25 and 44 because this is the window of greatest pressure for delivery and consolidation. Work demands sustained focus. Training asks for consistent progression. Relationships require emotional predictability. In all three, the social perception you create makes things easier or harder. In leadership, a regulated body reduces noise in meetings and sets boundaries. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard when your presence already organizes the room. In performance, the same axis that stabilizes your voice stabilizes attention, trading the chase for stimuli for a cadence of execution, which shortens the distance between intention and habit. In relationships, a calm gaze and measured voice signal reliability, and reliability is the base on which attraction and respect grow with less effort. Watch how this shows up in concrete situations. In the gym, those training nearby notice you don't get lost in screens between sets. Your rest is measured, your return to the exercise is decided, and your technique doesn't degrade to prove anything to anyone. At work, your pauses become punctuation for the idea, not an escape from discomfort. When you breathe before responding, you show you aren't being driven by the impulse of the moment. In social settings, comfortable silence makes it clear you aren't trying to buy approval with excessive talk. You allow the other person to reveal themselves, which paradoxically makes you more interesting. In all these cases, the same base appears: more coherent neuroelectrical signals producing a more readable body and a more trustworthy presence. That's why retention, when used as a tool for self-regulation, becomes visible as aura, not because it creates something mystical from nothing, but because it reduces noise that interferes with the reading of what already exists. By decreasing cycles of impulsive discharge, you return resources to the system, which reorganizes into attention, breathing, and tone. This reorganization has immediate social consequences. People tend to adjust their own posture when you arrive, to lift their eyebrows slightly when you hold eye contact, to moderate their pace when your speech is supported by air rather than hurry. There's no bravado here. There's engineering of the obvious. When mind and body come to an agreement, the environment notices. And when the environment notices, it calls that aura. Self-command is not a slogan. It is a measurable pattern in your nervous system. And one of the cleanest proxies we have for that pattern is heart rate variability. HRV is the moment-to-moment change in the time interval between heartbeats, and it reflects how flexibly your autonomic nervous system shifts between mobilizing energy and restoring it. A higher, resilient HRV profile usually indicates stronger parasympathetic tone on tap and quicker recovery from stressors. In practice, this looks like attention that holds steady under pressure, emotional responses that arrive measured rather than explosive, and a body that returns to baseline without you having to force it. When men talk about feeling grounded on retention, what often improved first was this background flexibility. Breath deepened, posture lost its jitter, and the mind stopped chasing every spark. HRV is not a trophy to chase, but a compass. If it trends healthier, your system is learning to regulate instead of react. The brain and the heart do not trade dominance, they synchronize. Electrical activity in the cortex and oscillations from the cardiorespiratory system meet through brainstem hubs and vagal pathways, and their relationship is situational. Fatigue, task difficulty, music, caffeine, and emotional context all tilt the coupling. That is why chasing a perfect waveform is counterproductive. The aim is not to manufacture a single frequency, but to cultivate conditions that make coherence more likely when you need it. Consistent sleep, daylight exposure, nasal breathing at a slower cadence, strength work paired with real recovery, and the disciplined removal of hyper-novelty loops that fracture attention. Retention helps here as a constraint that reduces impulsive discharge and the late-night stimulus hunts that scramble these circuits. With fewer spikes to recover from, the system reclaims bandwidth, and HRV follows as an effect of cleaner inputs rather than as a trick you try to force. Translated into what people perceive as aura, this alignment becomes visible without announcement. When cortical focus and autonomic tone are in agreement, your eyes stop scanning for exits and learn to land. The voice drops into the body and paces itself by breath instead of anxiety. Gestures shrink to what is necessary because the system is no longer leaking excess tension through fidgets and filler words. The room interprets this as calm authority. You are not louder, you are clearer. Silence feels like a choice, not a failure to think of something to say. In hallway conversations, others mirror your cadence. In negotiations, the tempo slows to your rhythm. In training, partners match your steadiness set after set. None of this requires mystical framing. It is neuroelectric order presenting as social signal. The longer you maintain habits that support HRV and attention, the more this signal stabilizes. Retention functions as a multiplier when it protects these habits from being drowned by compulsion, letting the nervous system do what it does best: regulate, recover, and project a presence that people trust. The body adapts in waves, not straight lines, and the first 2 weeks of retention often reveal a recognizable pattern. There is a small, frequently cited study suggesting a transient bump in testosterone around day 7 of abstinence. The sample was modest, and replication is mixed, so it's better treated as an exploratory checkpoint than a promise. What consistently matters more than a single hormone snapshot is the shift in regulation: fewer impulsive discharges, steadier sleep, cleaner attention, and a nervous system that wastes less energy on chasing novelty. Read the week as a training block for your neuroelectrical order, not a treasure hunt for magic days. Days 1 to 3 are stabilization. You're breaking a loop so the system can feel edgy or foggy depending on your baseline. The priority is to quiet background noise so self-control doesn't rely on willpower alone. Anchor sleep with a strict cutoff for screens, daylight exposure early, and nasal breathing through the day to keep CO2 tolerance up. Hydration with adequate electrolytes and 2 or 3 10-minute walks after meals will smooth glucose swings that masquerade as urges. Keep training honest and technical: tempo work, mobility, Zone 2 cardio, and let your ego sit out heavy attempts. Socially, choose low-friction interactions and practice unhurried eye contact for a few seconds at a time. If HRV or mood dip, don't catastrophize. The system is reallocating resources and settling. Days 4 to 7 are expression. Baseline steadies, attention holds longer, and your speech begins to pace itself by breath rather than by anxiety. This is a productive window for heavier training and deliberate social reps. In the gym, favor compound lifts with clear progressions and longer rest, finishing with nasal breathing conditioning to leave the nervous system calm, not cooked. At work, schedule tasks that require deep focus and at least one conversation where you let silence do part of the talking. The contrast will be noticeable to others even if they can't name it. Treat the 7th day as a useful pulse check, not a summit. Keep caffeine moderate, double down on protein and whole food carbs, and watch for euphoria creeping into sloppy decisions. Presence travels best on a stable platform. You wake up heavy, eyes dull, attention scattered by endless scrolling, chasing quick relief that leaves you emptier by night. The body feels wired and tired at once. Discipline slips, and the masculine core that once drove you now drifts between anxiety, compulsion, and a purpose you can't touch. That ends here. The Patreon Gods of Semen is a hidden, initiatory portal where your raw energy is trained, ordered, and transmuted into focus, presence, and spiritual strength. Inside, you step into a brotherhood that speaks your language and expects your rise. What you receive: daily motivational posts that recalibrate your mind before the world hijacks it. Videos too direct for YouTube, strategy, psychology, and spiritual warfare without the censors. Ritual PDFs to anchor habits in sacred practice. Complete series on semen retention, spiritual warfare, and philosophical readings that sharpen judgment and will. Early access to content so you lead the wave, not follow it. This door does not stay open for everyone. A founder promotion is reserved only for the first 10 who enter through the pinned comment. After that, the gate closes. This space is not for spectators. It is for men courageous enough to keep what others waste and turn it into calm power. For initiates willing to suffer transformation rather than remain comfortable and lost. Choose your side. Remain a slave to impulses that drain your life, or become a guardian of yourself whose presence commands rooms and protects his purpose. Click the pinned comment and claim the promotion now. Stored sex. The code of raw masculine energy is a field manual for men ready to stop leaking power and start governing it from the inside out. 170 plus pages, 8 structured modules, activation phrases that brand your mind with new commands, spiritual practices that stabilize the nervous system, and concrete retention rituals that turn intention into daily rite. Expect the shift from scattered to centered, from compulsive to purposeful, from noise to a calm authority people feel when you walk in. Open the link in the description or pinned comment, secure your copy, and step into the work. A limited promotion is reserved for the first 10 buyers only. Enter, study, apply, and let the man you were built to be take the helm. Days 8 to 14 are consolidation. Novelty seeking may flare as the brain tests boundaries. This is where many people mistake a wobble for failure. Hold sleep as non-negotiable, rotate intensity and training to avoid frying the system, and keep your information diet clean. When urges spike, surf them. Name the sensation. Breathe down into the abdomen for a minute and move your body before you move your mind. Socially, keep the same cadence, steady eyes, measured voice, minimal gestures, so the behavior teaches the physiology what normal feels like. Track simple markers: morning energy, steadiness across the afternoon, ease of eye contact, and the quality of post-workout calm. If those trend cleaner, the adaptation is working regardless of what any single number says. Signal versus noise is the discipline that makes this cycle useful. Real life is too messy to attribute every glance or mood shift to hormones, and chasing a perfect day creates the very tension that breaks regulation. Use the week to build loops that compound. Sleep that lands at the same hour, training that ends with you calmer than you started, breath that leads the voice, and environments that don't bait your attention every 5 minutes. Consistency turns the nervous system from reactive to available, and availability is what others read as a stronger field. The story isn't about hitting day 7. It's about becoming a man whose signals line up often enough that people trust what they feel around him. Dopamine is your system's allocation signal. When it is constantly lured by hyper-novelty, explicit content, endless scrolling, Rapid cut entertainment. It keeps flagging new targets and abandons the ones already on your desk. Retention helps by removing one of the strongest novelty loops, but the shift only becomes obvious when you also clean up the other loops. As those spikes quiet down, tonic levels stabilize, and the prefrontal cortex stops getting yanked off task every few minutes. What you experience is not a mystical surge, it is fewer detours. Attention becomes a straight road instead of a maze, and that linearity reads as presence. People sense it as a denser field around you because you are not fragmenting in front of them. Your eyes do less scanning, your hands stop looking for something to do, and your speech starts to follow breath instead of chasing approval. The markers are visible to anyone paying attention. Steady eye contact without the stare down, a half-second pause before you answer, and silence that feels chosen rather than awkward, all signal that your nervous system is not overclocked. Dominance in social settings is often misread as volume. In practice, it is pacing. You set tempo when your body is not begging for micro rewards. In a meeting, this shows up as sentences that land cleanly and end where they should. On a date, it looks like listening without trying to solve every gap with a joke. With friends, it's your willingness to let a beat pass so the most honest thought can surface. The body mirrors the mind. Shoulders settle, gestures shrink to what is necessary, and your voice sits lower in the register because breath is leading sound. These details stack into a single message most people can't articulate, but immediately respect. This person is self-governed. There is a final layer that sits closer to curiosity than doctrine: social olfaction. Humans, like other mammals, do respond to chemosignals, and compounds such as androstenedione are studied for their subtle effects on mood and perception. The findings are mixed and context-dependent, which means you should treat them as an interesting footnote, not as a shortcut to presence. If your sleep is chaotic, your attention is fractured, and your behavior leaks insecurity, no molecule will fix the impression you create. The practical path is still regulation first. Stabilize dopamine by reducing novelty hunts. Let breath pace the voice, and hold eye contact with a soft focus that invites rather than threatens. When the internal signals line up, the external read becomes effortless, and what people call magnetism is simply the nervous system broadcasting a coherent message. Presence becomes real when you can test it. The goal of this protocol is to turn what people call aura into something observable, repeatable, and trackable, so you can adjust inputs and see changes in the way others respond. You are not performing a trick. You are presenting a regulated nervous system and letting the environment mirror it back to you. Begin with the 3-second neutral presence test. Choose a neutral moment in public space where interaction is common and non-invasive, such as approaching a counter, waiting in line, or pausing near a gym rack. Set your base quietly. Stand tall with the crown of the head lifted, ribs stacked over the pelvis, weight spread across both feet, jaw unclenched, tongue resting on the palate. Take one slow nasal breath down to the abdomen and allow your exhale to finish. Let your eyes settle softly on the triangle formed by the other person's eyes and the bridge of the nose. Hold that soft contact for 3 seconds without tightening your face, without lifting your chin, and without forcing a smile. Say nothing. After the 3 seconds, give a micro-acknowledgement such as a small nod or a relaxed blink, then proceed naturally with whatever the situation requires. You are communicating safety and steadiness, not trying to dominate or recruit attention. Read micro-reactions without chasing them. The human body broadcasts dozens of small tells when it registers coherent presence. A slight head tilt toward you as if tuning a radio, a brief eyebrow lift, a postural adjustment where the sternum rises or the shoulders square, feet pointing a few degrees more in your direction, hands pausing mid-task, a change in blink rate, a subtle softening in the corners of the mouth, or a quick glance down and back up before engagement. In the gym, you will often see breath reset and pacing slow for a rep or two near you. In retail or coffee lines, you may hear a shift to a calmer tone or a fuller exhale before the person speaks. None of these signals proves anything on their own. They are low-noise hints that your system is being read as stable. Vary the context so you don't train a party trick for one environment. Run 2 to 4 tests per day across different settings. The gym floor between sets with equipment racked, a checkout line, a building lobby, a casual hallway pass at work, or waiting for a crosswalk. Keep ethics and calibration in front. Do not stare, crowd, or hold eye contact beyond the target window. Maintain an oblique angle of about 45 degrees unless direct engagement is expected, and respect any cue of discomfort by breaking contact immediately and shifting attention elsewhere. Your aim is to present a readable signal, not to extract a reaction. If a conversation begins naturally, let your breath pace your speech and keep gestures minimal. If it does not, move on without chasing an outcome. Alchemy of the Gods is not a book. It is a threshold. If your spine feels asleep, if your mind flickers between fatigue and compulsion, step in. Here the language is fire and structure. Kundalini, the serpentine flame that rises and reorders. Crystalline oil, the sacred anointing that clears the mind and sharpens vision. Spiritual liberation, the disciplined art of breaking inner chains without breaking yourself. You will move through symbols like a soldier through maps, strategically, ritually, effectively, so energy stops leaking and begins to obey. Accessible in print, digital, and audiobook, this work is a living portal of activation. Open it, read it aloud, and let practice become presence. The gate is in the description and the pinned comment. Enter with intention. The Semen Retention Success Path audiobook is your immediate key. 2 hours, 6 deep themes that organize focus, forge strength, and unlock spiritual bandwidth when life pulls you thin. Press play and train the nervous system to serve your purpose, not your impulses. Bonus for initiates who enter now. 30% off the ebook, The Art of Semen Retention for Men. 20+ practical pages to operationalize your days. Become a channel member to stand closer to the fire. Early access to releases, priority answers, and direct support to the mission that is shaping a disciplined, spiritually awake brotherhood. Record what happens in a simple journal so the signal separates from noise over time. Create consistent fields you can complete in under a minute. Date and time, day of your retention cycle, hours of sleep and perceived sleep quality, morning HRV or readiness number if you track it, training done that day, caffeine intake approximated in milligrams, baseline mood using a 1 to 10 steadiness scale, context of the test, distance and angle, your internal state markers such as jaw relaxed and voice grounded, and the micro reactions you observed written in plain language. Add a quick self-rating of felt presence from 1 to 10, and 1 line on anything that might have influenced the read, such as being rushed or using your phone. After 14 days, scan for patterns rather than isolated wins. Do mornings read cleaner than late afternoons? Do you notice better results after 8 hours of sleep compared to 6? Does heavy training with poor recovery flatten responses the next day? Does higher caffeine push you towards stare or speed? The rule of 3 helps reduce confirmation bias. Do not call a pattern real until you have seen it at least 3 times in similar conditions. Lean on home markers that are easy to gather and hard to fake. A short morning HRV reading taken the same way each day, even if imprecise, shows direction over weeks. Basic sleep data such as total time, nocturnal awakenings, and how rested you feel upon waking will often predict the ease of soft eye contact more reliably than any gadget. A 2 to 3 minute slow read aloud session can confirm whether your voice sits lower and rides on breath or climbs into the throat. When the voice is set, words land with less effort. A quick jaw scan, feeling for hidden clench in the masseters, and a 60-second bout of slower nasal breathing at about 4 to 6 cycles per minute will tell you if tension is leaking through your face. You do not need EEG to begin. Consistency beats complexity, and the markers that matter most are the ones you will actually collect. As the days stack, you will notice the 3-second window becoming less of a test and more of a baseline. Your body will default to stacked posture, relaxed jaw, slower breath, and eyes that land softly without effort. People will often adjust to that baseline before you set any deliberate window, which is the practical definition of aura in this frame. Your neuroelectrical order is felt by others ahead of your words, and the environment quietly shifts to meet it. This stack is not theatrics. It is a short sequence that clears interference so your baseline signal comes through. 7 minutes is enough to raise parasympathetic tone, anchor your voice in breath, and align posture with intent. You will move through 3 blocks in order, and then step directly into the room or conversation you care about. Begin with 2 minutes of slower breathing at roughly 4 to 6 cycles per minute. Stand or sit tall with the crown of the head lifted, ribs stacked over the pelvis and feet grounded. Seal the lips, place the tongue softly on the palate, and inhale through the nose, letting the lower ribs expand laterally, like a belt loosening. Exhale through the nose slightly longer than you inhale and let the shoulders stay quiet while the abdomen does the work. If it helps, count a gentle 4 to 5 on the inhale and a 5 to 6 on the exhale, or use a silent word on each phase to keep attention tethered. Keep the jaw unlatched, eyes half soft as if reading across a room, and let the end of each exhale finish on its own without squeezing the air out. Aim for 12 slow breaths over the 2 minutes. Your indicators that it is working are a subtle warmth in the hands, a slower blink rate, and a small drop in heart tempo you can feel at the wrist. Do not chase a perfect number. Chase an unmistakable sense that breath is leading and the nervous system is following. Move into 3 minutes of slow reading aloud to set vocal rhythm and resonance. Choose a short passage with clear sentences, a paragraph from something you respect or a portion of your own notes, and read at a tempo that would let a listener write down the last word of each sentence. Let breaths happen at punctuation. Keep the tongue relaxed against the palate and feel the sound vibrate in the chest more than in the throat. If the voice climbs high, pause for one deeper nasal inhale and start the next line lower. Keep consonants crisp without punching them, and allow half-second spaces between sentences so meaning can land. This is not performance, it is calibration. When the voice rides on breath and sits lower, your speech later will be slower without feeling slow, and listeners will match your pace rather than pulling you into theirs. Finish with 2 minutes of posture alignment and jaw release to remove leftover noise from the face and neck. Stand with feet hip-width, unlock the knees, and imagine a string drawing the crown up while the tailbone drops just enough to stack the pelvis. Float the sternum slightly without flaring the ribs. Let the shoulder blades melt down and back as if they were sliding into shallow pockets. You are creating room for breath, not posing. Scan the jaw by lightly gliding fingertips over the masseters on each side of the face, then trace small circles at the temples and behind the ears along the jaw hinge. Let the teeth stay untouching with a millimeter of space, lips closed, and feel the tongue resting wide on the palate. Soften the eye muscles as though you were looking at the bridge of someone's nose rather than into their pupils. It keeps focus present without turning into a challenge. Take 3 slow neck nods yes and 3 slow turns no, small ranges only, to free the atlanto-occipital joint. End with 1 long exhale and let the face settle into neutral. Walk straight into your interaction while the system is primed. Do not add hyping behaviors, extra staring, or artificial gravitas. Let breath pace the first sentence you speak, keep gestures minimal for the first minute, and allow silences to sit for a beat before you fill them. Remember the purpose of the stack. It does not manufacture aura out of thin air. It reduces clutter so the nervous system you have can be read clearly. If you feel rushed, extend the exhale by 1 count as you listen. If you notice your voice rising, place 1 hand lightly on the lower ribs for a single breath to bring it back down. If the jaw starts to grip, release the molars and swallow once without tipping the head. Over repeated use, the stack becomes muscle memory in less than 7 minutes, and the internal order it creates begins to precede you into the room. Breath slows, gaze steadies, and the signal you broadcast becomes readable before you speak. That is the point where aura ceases to be myth and turns into measurement. You can remain where the nervous system is rented out to every impulse, or you can cross the line and claim stewardship of your energy. Choose the quiet urgency of those who act. Mark your learning with a like, accept the journey by subscribing and activating the bell, and take the next step of the right by watching the recommended video that continues this initiation.